Hello, everyone, and welcome to this masterclass on motivating your team without a budget, or you can also say boost your team mojo. We are absolutely delighted to have you with us today to explore this core topic for all managers and team leaders, regardless of the size of your company or your budget. This is a universal issue. Few organizations can really claim to have everyone in their team 100% motivated. So it concerns every industry, really, from real estate, construction, retail, services, NGOs as well, because retaining volunteers with the sole reward having done a good job is just not easy. Public sector as well, where financial incentives, recognition, and career prospects are often too limited. So in short, this topic concerns pretty much everyone. And Melinda and I were quite well aware of this because that's a recurring theme in most of our coaching or consulting sessions, really. So that's exactly why we picked this subject for today. So a little bit more about me. I'm Raphael. I will be presenting this masterclass today with Melinda, both as a certified life and business coach. I like to introduce myself as a growth partner as I support my clients and their in their personal development, their career advancement, and their business growth as well. I have about 20 years experience in the corporate world, primarily in London and in Paris, in finance, aviation, real estate, which give me a rich and pragmatic approach to the business. The common thread in my work is really combining well-being with performance. So motivation in the workplace is truly at the heart of what I do. I will leave Melinda introduce herself now.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Melinda. So I'm also a certified coach and I specialize in neuroscience and I work with companies, but also individuals to apply neuroscience in sales, in management, and in motivation for happier and more performing teams. So what we're going to cover today is 100% my day-to-day life.
Let's set the scene with this question. Do you know how many employees feel engaged or motivated at work? Interestingly, there aren't many studies on this topic, so we'll often refer to the consulting firm Gallup here during this session. Gallup has been ahead of this field and published a study back in 2017 called The State of the Global Workplace, conducted across over 100 countries, providing an insightful view of the workplace. So the Gallup study reveals some alarming results that only 15% of employees worldwide feel engaged in their work. And that percentage dropped to an average of 10% in Europe, which is about 10% in the UK as well. So in 2023, the same Gallup study shows an engagement rate that it's maintained of 10%, again, for the UK, and against an average of about 13% in Europe and worldwide 23%. So engagement is really a global issue. And it's no wonder that all leaders or team managers are really looking to maximize their team engagement and not just by increasing salaries.
We're not saying you shouldn't pay people for their work. We're actually telling the opposite. Actually, 50% of British people consider salary to be the main motivating factor at work. So it's important. But for the other 50%, it's not the most important thing. And on the top of it, the effect of a salary increase on motivation seems to be lasting only 2 to 3 weeks, according to Swisse-Siegel. So it's clearly not a sustainable strategy to keep people motivated all year long. And in today's world, no company can afford to constantly compete with other organizations on its salary alone and what they pay the collaborators. The law of the highest salary cannot be considered as a long-term motivating factor.
I'm just going to talk about the banking industry, which is an industry I know quite well because I work for more than 10 years in London in finance. So you might think that in finance, people are well paid and therefore the turnover should be low. And this is actually not quite true. It's kind of the opposite. Having, worked so long in that industry, I've seen, for instance, like entire teams resign in bulk to rebuild a team, at a competitor. And that usually actually happened in February, just right after the bonuses are paid. So the solution to motivate your team cannot only be to spend more. It would just be ever ending, right? So the solution really lies elsewhere. And you're right to have signed up for this masterclass here, because this is where we actually gonna provide you now with answer to that challenge. Why do you think it's so important to keep your team motivated? And what is for you your objective in trying to keep your team motivated? Because the motivation is obviously essential, producing results. But more than that, how much do you feel it costs your company to keep a team that is disengaged? Lack of motivation has a huge impact on business. Employee disengagement is estimated to cost the UK economy over 340 billion sterling per year in loss of productivity, training costs, recruitment expenses, sick days, and lack of innovation. A disengaged employee costs a company around 18% of their annual salary as an average. So for example, if you have an engaged employee that make about 30K a year, additional cost for the company would be around 5,400 due just for this employee being disengaged for all the reasons that I just mentioned before. So in summary, employee disengagement is like water seeping everywhere. There may be just one leak, but it causes multiple problems, and lack of motivation has a huge and widespread impact at all levels of the business.
And that's why today we're going to invite you to explore strategies to motivate your team without spending fortunes on salary increase, bonuses, and we're going to do that now. So what we decided to do with Raphael is kind of, we thought it would be great to have a list of all the levers you can have to motivate your team without money. So we broke down all the main elements contributing to motivation and engagement, and we're going to share them with you now. The first thing we wanted to share is that first, it is mission possible to have a good engagement. According to the Gallup study we mentioned earlier, Google has an employee engagement rate of 83%. I know it's a figure that many of you would like to have, and it's true that Google is very well renowned for its innovative team motivation practices. For example, they allow their employees to dedicate 20% of their work time to personal projects that are not directly related to their job. This helps Google to have teams that can develop new skills, explore new ideas, and contribute to the company's innovation. Obviously, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say that, yeah, but Google has a lot of resources. And it's true. And to be totally honest, we wanted to give you other examples than the usual suspects that everybody knows, but we couldn't find any other study on engagement rate apart from this number from Gallup, which shows the considerable work still needed in the field of corporate social responsibility. So let's see together what we'll cover today.
Just so you're right to mention that those figures are coming from Gallup as well, right? So I think that's quite interesting also to mention that it's really comparing apple with apples here. When we say that the average in the UK is 15%, this is exactly the same measurements that calculate that in Google is 83%.
So topics today, money and status, the obvious ones, which are factors of extrinsic motivation. We're going to talk about certainty and addressing the need for emotional safety, autonomy. Limiting uncertainty is a good way to keep people motivated. Connection, we're going to see the importance of people connecting together in your teams to create a longer motivation, being authentic, obviously. And at the end, we'll talk to you about our VIP pack.
We have a surprise for you here because we actually launching this class as a mini online course on Udemy, and this is something a bit new for us. So we are looking for testimonial. If you like the course and you go, up to the end on Udemy, as a token of gratitude, we will provide you with the engagement pack for free if you leave us a testimonial at the end. So keep going. What do you think is the number one reason for an employee to leave their job? So according to Gallup, the top 5 reasons for which an employee might leave their work start by number 1, their manager. in 50% of cases, employees leave a company because of a lazy manager. I even attended a conference where Gallup stated that a manager has a more significant impact on an employee health than their doctor. This comparison is really here to highlight the fundamental role managers play in their employees' mental health. It emphasizes the importance of HR management skills and leadership skills among managers to create a work environment conducive to employees' mental well-being. Gallup also suggests a coaching model for managers, meaning managing like a coach would lead their sport team to victory. I have to say this resonates with me a lot because it reminds me of a manager I had at Credit Lyonnais at the beginning of my career. We were completely, pumped up by this manager enthusiasm and continuous support. And the team was actually working great. I also experienced, great managers, but also a toxic one. And that led to mass resignation in that department and a dreadful atmosphere. So I experienced firsthand that the impact of a lazy manager on team performance is completely evident, regardless of the company's overall performance, which in my case was actually quite good. So if you have managers or team leaders who are themselves demotivated and trained in team management, which, by the way, is often the case since managers are often promoted for their expertise and not their management skills. Or worse, if you actually have managers who are toxic, then keeping your team engaged will become very problematic. So everything we discuss here today only work if it's implemented by the direct line manager without any filter whatsoever between your initiatives and the team, basically. Because a disengaged manager will inevitably send very negative signals to their team, which can quickly lead to a talent drain for the company. Okay, so that's for reason number one. Reason number two is unfairness at work. Employees leave due to feeling treated unfairly. So let's delve a bit into the feeling of injustice, and we will return later to the other reasons. So we wanted to share this video with you to demonstrate that the sense of unfairness is universal and can trigger anger or at least a lot of bitterness in pretty much everyone. So let's start the video.
Getting grape, and you will see what happens. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape and she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber.
Oh, come on, I want food.
She tests the rock now against the wall. She needs to give it to us. And she gets cucumber again.
Okay, you get it.
What this unfairness would look like in the workplace, there's different examples. It could be, for example, when there is some favoritism. So, Paul was promoted even though he had less seniority than me, or the project was allocated to Sophie, but I know the client better. Or it could be as well when you feel you have no control on decisions. So decisions are made without any consultation or explanation, and they affect me more than others. Inequity and disrespect, like my workload increase when Sophie goes on maternity leave, but nothing is asked of Paul. And they put air conditioning in Paul's office this summer, but not in mine. The feel of broken promises as well. I was promised a salary increase, promotion, improvement of working condition, and nothing ever happens. And feeling of productive exploitation. So I'm paid less than my friend who does the same job than me in another company, and I'm paid less than the average salary. And I'm asked on the top of it to work weekends without any compensation. So how to avoid it? The first thing, a good lever is really to promote communication and understanding. ensure open and transparent communication channel. And
to recap, the most frequent causes of an employee departure. So poor management, we started with that. We just talked about the massive influence of direct line manager on an employee motivation. The feeling of injustice or unfairness that is universal, as you mentioned, Melinda. It's so deeply ingrained in our brain that trying to rationalize any feeling of injustice is hardly an option, really. So we have to address it. The other reasons, besides salary and promotion, are really related to personal development, lack of recognition, lack of meaning, and lack of autonomy. These are four interesting causes because they actually match the essential human needs described in the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Does that mean that we actually created corporate structures that somehow lack humanity? I don't know, but the good thing is that it's up to us to change it. What is the Maslow hierarchy of needs? You might be familiar already with that pyramid. If you're not, it's a theory of motivation developed by psychologist Abraham Maslow in the 1940s. So it's quite old, but it's still quite popular. It ranks fundamental human needs into 5 levels, from the most basic ones to the highest, starting with physiological needs. So eating, drinking, sleeping, breathing. Then the needs for safety, feeling secure, safe from danger, needs for belonging, which is social integration, having fulfilling relationships, then the need for esteem, being recognized, valued, developing self-confidence, and ultimately a need for self-actualization, realizing one's potential, being self-fulfilled. So this hierarchy of human needs can be applied, or let's say translated, to employees' motivation at work as well. If you're thinking about the workplace, how does it translate? Physiological needs, a decent salary that covers basic needs, so food, shelter, etc., which we discussed. Need for safety would be stable employment, self and healthy working condition, social benefits, this kind of thing. And let me share a personal story here, because during the financial crisis in 2008, I was working in London for Citibank, actually. And at that time, Lehman Brothers just collapsed just before. And we were all at risk. And Citi decided to let go of about 20% of their UK payroll in the next 6 months. And at that time, I remember sitting on the 25th floor, in one of these towers, in Canary Wharf. And we were sitting in cubicles of 4. And I remember thinking, well, last in, first out, right? And I knew last in was me. And 20% was about 1 out of the 4 sitting at that cubicle. So I was really thinking, we're 4 here, and that's basically one of us gonna leave, and it's likely to be me. My point is really that industry are constantly evolving, especially today with the AI revolution that's starting, and maintaining emotional security in that context is really challenging and requires a lot of effort. It doesn't come naturally, basically. Now, after the need of safety, we need to feel we belong. At work, it translates into having a positive work environment, healthy relationship with colleagues and our manager, of course, as we mentioned the importance of a manager before, and a sense of belonging to the team and the company. Next is the need for esteem, being valued and recognized for one's work, having responsibilities, receiving praise and rewards. And eventually the need for self-actualization, so opportunities for development, training, stimulating challenges, but not too much, because too much stress, trigger, other things we know. And we need autonomy to develop self-fulfillment. So we also need to be able to identify and visualize progress. So according to Maslow, for an employee to be fully motivated and engaged, all their needs need to be met at all levels, starting by the base of the pyramid, meaning the physiological needs, up to the top of the pyramid. A manager must therefore ensure they address the various needs of their employees if they want to boost their motivation and well-being at work.
The SCARF model by David Rock really incorporates all the elements from the Maslow pyramid. David Rock and his model is all about activating the reward circuit. What does activating the reward circuit? It means if you activate it, you'll have people motivated, engaged, creative, and high performance. If you activate the threat circuits, and I hear a lot of stories with managers doing that in my coachings, it only activates anxiety, opposition, disengagement, distrust. And according to David Rock, there are 5 key domains in our relationship with others. It's status, certainty, autonomy, relationship, and fair play. And we're going to go through each of them, giving you concrete example on how you can activate those.
Cool. Let's start with status that I would like you to consider within the frame of a larger category that is extrinsic motivators. What is an extrinsic motivator? As it is an external factor that motivates someone to perform a behavior or engage in an activity. So it means it comes from outside the individual rather than from within. And by the way, this list of motivators includes some motivators not to use at work, like sex, for instance. So hopefully you don't do that. So I invite you to reflect on what kind of extrinsic motivators you do use to boost your team at work. So here are some common examples of extrinsic motivators: money, salary, bonuses, commissions, titles or symbol of status, like having a corner office, for instance, praise or positive feedback from others, public acknowledgement or fame, prizes, trophies, tombstones, awards, gifts. But it could also be punishments or fines. If you're late, penalties or loss of privileges, demotion, job termination, criticism, disapproval, social rejection. So you got it. Extrinsic motivators essentially provide an external reason to do something beyond any inherent enjoyment or satisfaction from the activity itself. Extrinsic motivators, they actually can be powerful in the short term. It's quite important to note they're not bad. They are quite useful, but over-reliance on extrinsic motivators can potentially undermine intrinsic motivation over time. And that's why giving a pay raise motivates the team, but only temporarily. So the goal, therefore, is often to use extrinsic motivators strategically to initially spark interest and effort, and eventually leading to more self-driven intrinsic motivation as skills and engagement increase. What are the other types of motivators, the intrinsic motivators? An intrinsic motivator is, by opposition, an internal driving force that compels someone to do something for its inherent satisfaction rather than for any external reward or pressure. It is also something called autotelic experience, a state of complete immersion and absorption in an activity where the activity itself becomes intrinsically rewarding and enjoyable. That is also the state people are when they are in flow, but that's a different chapter. We'll probably talk about it in another masterclass. So to come back to the main intrinsic motivators, here are some examples. Curiosity about a topic that drives learning and exploration, enjoyment of creative self-expression through art or writing, for instance, or desire for mastery that fuels persistence on a challenging task, feeling of flow and absorption when fully engaged in an activity, sense of purpose from working toward meaningful goals, satisfaction from helping others or contributing to a cause. What's important to note is that intrinsic motivators are deeply personal and vary across individuals based on their interests, their values, or their psychological needs. I may enjoy writing, for instance. You may enjoy coding, right? For instance, you may enjoy coding, right? We might not having fun in doing the same thing. We all quite different, and that's good because someone likes some things that I don't like. It creates actually great synergies at work. So intrinsic motivators always involve engaging in an activity for the positive experiences and feelings they provide, rather than being driven by external rewards or punishment or pressures. Now, we're going to explore in depth today some of these intrinsic motivators because they are so powerful in maintaining engagement over time among the team. And that's what we're looking for today.
After studies, there is certainty. Your teams need to have a clear ideas of what the future holds. Why? Because the brain simply hates uncertainty. It gives you like shoots of cortisol and noradrenaline, and this is not good. So there's different ways you can do that. The first one is to hold like monthly meeting session for open question. It's something that was happening in my last job, where we had like a meeting with the CEO, and we could send through in a totally anonymous way our questions and what we were worried about. And he would answer. So it's got two benefits. When you're a leader, it helps you to understand what your employees are concerned about. So that's very good. It doesn't mean you have to answer every question, because in some cases, and some questions were asked and the reply we got was, right, we can't really go into detail right now about that, but we'll make sure we'll address it next time, for example. And then it allows your teams to ask really all the questions they have on their mind. So that's a very good way to do it. There is also the use of project management tools. There's plenty of those today. The Notions, the Asanas, the Mondays, the Trellos, that can help to document, track, and clearly share goals and expectations with the entire team. And the last but not least, and super important, is the providing feedback to make it not just something exceptional, but really something part of the day-to-day in order to help people to progress. I really like the idea of feedback as well, because it's I like to compare it to sport. Like if you even if you're the best, like football player or tennis player of the world, without a coach and without feedback on how to improve, you're never going to progress. And it's the same thing in a team. It's not, feedback is really there to help people becoming even better.
Feedback 100. First one is say it now. Don't delay your feedback. Providing immediate feedback is the most effective way to deliver feedback. So imagine if your manager is making comments about something you did a month ago. With all good intent, you might just not remember that what he's referring to. So there was actually a study that compares the effectiveness of immediate feedback for doctors, in particular for surgeons. Surgeons can literally see and feel with their fingers right away what's going on. They receive more immediate feedback during procedures than physicians in other specialties. And that seems to allow them to make adjustments and improve their techniques more rapidly compared to other physicians. So specifically that study stated, surgeons receive immediate feedback during procedures that allows them to adjust their techniques, whereas physicians in other specialties may not receive similar feedback that could guide improvement in their skills. So basically, with real-time feedback, surgeons get during operation, they get better faster than other physicians. And obviously, that's the same for us. Next one, be sincere. The truth is that we all have some kind of bullshit detector, right? We know when someone is not sincere, when they tell us, for instance, you've been amazing, or, oh, your pitch to this client was just missing the point. Well, we actually know that the manager omitted to give us an information that was key in structuring that pitch. So honesty in feedback is really important to build trust and connections to make people feel respected. Another point, if you're too nice just to boost an employee ego, they won't believe you next time. If you haven't built that trust, you will likely face a lot of resistance when you need to give feedback, negative feedback next time. Will you take advice from someone you don't respect. No way, right? So being honest is really essential if you want your feedback to be heard. The next point is being specific. When recognizing someone's contribution, be specific, like highlight the particular attitudes or actions and achievement you value. So let me give you an example here. During a project review, for instance, instead of just thanking the team, share detailed feedback on what specifically impressed you about the work, highlight what stood up to you personally, and share what impact it has on the business. That's what I mean by being specific. Next point, stay factual. So don't say things like, you spoke badly to Sophie, because that's just a judgment, and that will most likely attract a lot of resistance as well. Instead, if you say something like, I found you harsh with Sophie when you said you've done a lousy job. If you say that, it's about expressing feeling and repeating what you heard, and it's much more difficult to argue with that. Next one, value personal development. So don't limit your feedback to achievements and results. Discuss also the methods, ways used, and your collaborator attitude. So note the difference, for instance, between a great job on completing the project on time and under budget, and another feedback, for instance, is a bit longer, but great job on completing the project on time and under budget. I really appreciated the way you approach the project, especially your proactive problem solving and collaborative attitude, your way of organizing team meetings to ensure everyone was on the same page was particularly effective. Keep up the great work. I'm sure you can feel the almost like the dopamine boost, in the second example. I feel almost like pride for this guy, but that's what you get basically, when you make your feedback a bit more personal. The motivation boost is much, much higher. And ultimately, make it a habit. So the more it becomes a habit, the less emotional, the less difficult, and the more effective it becomes. Integrate really feedback into your business routine. So how can you do that? You can start each meeting, for instance, with a roundtable where each team member can share a recent success or express gratitude towards a coworker. That would definitely strengthen the team spirit. That's feedback on a zero, meaning the basics you want to know and apply to share feedback the most effective, efficient way. You'd be amazing if you can just do that on a regular basis. And in the pack, as I mentioned before, we'll talk about more detail, the best practices for feedback.
Autonomy. Why is it important? We like to feel in control. And again, if you don't feel in control, it creates a lot of stress, and this is not good for motivation. So your lever really is to say definite goodbye to micromanagement, to welcome trust. There's different ways we can do that. The first thing is about the posture you're gonna have. So usually what's most common among the managers is to have what we call a high posture. So the manager will position himself or herself as an expert compared to the collaborator, and the manager will tell them, what to do and how to do it. In a high posture, you're very directive, you tell people what to do, you provide the solution, but the best manager usually have what we call a low posture. A low posture is very different. It's assuming you don't know any better than the other, and it's all about inviting reflection. So it's being open, it's to listen, and it's questioning. And the idea of questioning it is really to facilitate the emergence of response. And in the pack, we'll give you 10 questions to ask your teams really to promote reflection and progress. The idea in this posture is really to ask open question and prefer the what to the how. For example, if I'm asking you why are the clients not converting, it can feel really intrusive, right? You can feel it feels a bit aggressive. But if I'm asking what challenges do you currently have in terms of client conversion, or how is evolving the client conversion, it's a totally different kind of energy. And now we're going to move to relationship, which is a huge lever as well. It's such a lever that for the younger generation, so the 18-22, the atmosphere among colleagues is even more important than the salary when choosing a company. So it's getting more and more important. Again, there's different things you can do to help with that. First, to have communal areas to be able to exchange. That's a key. Raphael, you've got an example you wanted to share as well, because it's possible even if you're remote.
I'm actually thinking about this team. I know we've spread the team into 4 offices between London, Paris, and Monaco to stay connected. They were sharing the same open space before, They installed, I think it's called octopuses, those conference room audio equipment with microphones and speakers. So they actually literally can chat all day long as if they were sitting in next to each other. Pretty efficient for them. You have to like the open space style, but that's what they had before, and that's what they wanted to replicate. So you can actually even do that if you work remotely. It works quite well for them.
Thank you. And it's possible, remotely and in offices. Another way, and something I really like as well, is helping people to get to know each other a bit more. And for that, a tool you can use is whenever there is during the onboarding process, for example, is asking people to fill it a little questionnaire, kind of like my manual to work, so people know more on how to work better with every newcomer. In the pack you have the full questionnaire, but you can, to give you some example, it could be, okay, when is the best time for me for meetings? So if I take my example, for me, best time for meeting is in the afternoon, because in the morning I really like to do deep work, for example. Or what annoys you the most? Well, for me, what annoys me, drives me mad, is really people that are not on time. So it's easier after to work together. And whatever happens, what you want to do at all costs is avoid the Valentine's Day syndrome. So the Valentine's Day syndrome, it's like Valentine's Day, right? If you, let's say you're in a relationship, and on Valentine's Day, your partner, bring you flowers, invite you to a nice dinner, bring you a present. And this is very nice. But if the rest of the year they really don't do anything, and they don't care, and they don't show love, it's not going to work. It's the same for team motivation. If you do it just once a year, it's not enough. It's something that needs to be a yearly project, and you need to put effort into it on a regular basis.
And I just wanted to add here that on the table you can see some cards. So the Mighty Mind cards, because they are coaching cards, but they're quite good as an icebreaker or to check everyone's mood before starting a meeting. And it's quite different. It's fun. It's a fun element to introduce into your business. And you don't need to, there's plenty of things like that on the market, but it's just an example of gamification in a way at work, or like introducing some fun that could make the mood or the atmosphere of your meeting completely different. Let's talk about recognition now. Did you know that about 7 out of 10 employees say they suffer from a lack of recognition at work, and that leaves actually a lot of space for improvement? Research shows that up to 66% of employees might leave the job if they don't feel valued. This is a complete wake-up call on the vital importance of recognition in our daily interaction at work. So there is a fantastic tool developed by Gary Chapman that's called the 5 Languages of Love initially. That was the first version, if you're interested. This is a version for romantic relationship. But that's actually been developed then to the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace. And this tool helps you understand how your team members prefer to give and receive appreciations, allowing you to motivate them in a meaningful and an effective way. So as Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart, said about the words of recognition, he said they cost nothing and they are worth everything. And I think he was absolutely right. Since the recognition tailored to each team member can be a really powerful tool, probably better than a huge year-end bonus, if not more. So let's explore those 5 languages of appreciation. The first one is words of affirmation, so verbal compliments. Take a moment to praise those you work with, regularly express your gratitude and recognize their effort and the positive impact they have on the team. Next is act of service, expressing appreciations through action. You can lend a hand with tasks others find tedious, for instance, or just a simple gesture like helping with cleaning this, somebody's screen if you have already wipes, handy, because you've done yours, or supporting someone on a project. All those things can make a big difference. Gifts, meaningful token of appreciation. A small gift can actually go a long way. Bringing your colleague's favorite coffee, or surprising them with some pastries in the morning. Next, quality time, giving undivided attention. Do you actually, for instance, take time for one-to-one moment with your team members to build a connection with them? Memorable experiences can also be shared as a group, like during company offsites, for instance, to reinforce cohesions. Next is physical touch. Obviously, to exercise with caution at the workplace. Some people will be quite appreciative of a high five or a friendly pat on the shoulder, for instance. But obviously, always use discernment and only if it's welcome, of course. So in summary, you have a toolkit of 5 languages you can use together or individually. You can choose the one language that comes more naturally to you. That will be the easiest for you. But even better, you can actually adapt your way of expressing recognition to what your team member prefers. It's a sure way to ensure your effort hit the mark, basically. So here are some examples or suggestions. You can decide what you think one of your team member will appreciate most. So, for instance, if a team member will value more words of affirmation, you could use a meeting to publicly praise them for their role in a project. If you think your team member is someone who prefers more acts of services, for instance, you can offer an extra day of remote work, for instance, as a token of gratitude for their hard work. If your coworker is more of a gift lover, why not a gift card to a local restaurant in appreciation of their efforts? If your coworker value quality time more, you could plan a one-to-one lunch to discuss their ideas on future projects. Okay, so here are just ideas, obviously. As for feedback, value personal development. What do I mean? Don't limit your recognition to professional achievement. Recognizing individuals' personal progress is just as important. Let's now move to the last variable in this equation for a good atmosphere at work, the company's culture and value, another important aspect of building meaningful relationships to retain and motivate employees.
It's important for people to be motivated to align that the company vision align with their own values. And for this, you can, ask the 4 whys to remember. Your teams, they need to be clear on 4 different why. So the first why is why your company exists. They need to understand the core purpose and mission of the company. The second why is why the team matters. So they need to be clear on the team's role in achieving the company goals. The third why is the individual. So why is the individual important? So recognizing each employee's contribution and how they align with the team and the company's objective. We need to feel that we matter. Like as an employee, I need to feel that I matter and I contribute to the objective of the company. And even the last why would be why each task is necessary, explaining the reasoning behind each request and assignment to give context and importance to the task as well.
So now here are some key trends that employees look for when deciding whether they like to work for a company. So we identified 3 of them. The first one would be diversity and most of all inclusion. So if you remember the Maslow pyramid, we talk about the need to feel a sense of belonging is right in the middle of the Maslow pyramid of human needs. According to research, promoting diversity and inclusion is a crucial lever for boosting team motivation. And here are some key points to boost your team mojo. Foster an inclusive culture where differences are seen as strengths and not weaknesses. Diverse and inclusive teams prove more creative, innovative, and they perform better. So your business interest is really to promote differences, not to erase them. Better represent your clients, because UK, especially London, has one of the most diverse population in the world. To better think like your clients, it makes sense actually to hire employees that are alike. By doing so, you will also increase your attractiveness and talent retention. So it's kind of a virtuous cycle. By developing diversity and inclusion, a manager creates an environment that is conducive to everyone's growth, and the company included. This strengthens the sense of belonging, the team cohesion, and collective motivation. Okay, so now let's talk about flex work. Having worked in banking, one of the most conservative industry, I know flex work can be a big deal for many reasons. In banking, it's reasons, a big one. Team cohesions, many reasons can actually be raised to limit flex work. But there are actually many positive sides of flex work as well. Developing more flexible work modes allow managers to empower their teams with higher autonomy and accountability. It promotes their well-being. I mean, by that, work-life balance, for instance. And surprisingly, it also enhances team cohesion, because effective hybrid teams are intentional about scheduling team-building activities and opportunity for social connections. They have to. Well, we know that if you work in the city, for instance, and you take a train to go home, in the greater London area, you're not going to stay for an after work drink to bond with your colleagues. So you might not have that intentionality, but people who actually work remotely, they know now that they have to make that effort. Now, another important trend nowadays is participative management. There seems to be a general consensus that British employees prefer a more participative and less hierarchical management model over a very hierarchical one, as it tends to lead to higher job satisfaction and well-being from the different studies available now. So here are the key points. Several experts cited evidence that hierarchical organizations provide less autonomy, lower trust between workers, and fewer opportunities for employee participation, factors that can negatively impact well-being and job satisfaction. And we actually, coming back to autonomy, I'm mentioning autonomy, but we saw that was actually one of the key intrinsic motivator employees. The case studies highlighted that managers in organizations with shorter hierarchies felt more legitimacy, freedom to make decisions, and ability to utilize resources effectively. Research shows as well that a participative leadership style leads to higher organization commitment, job satisfaction, and performance among employees. Okay, so what does it involve? Participative management places human at the heart of the team dynamic, basically. So that means involving the teams in decision making, promoting collective intelligence, so leveraging diverse perspectives and skills to solve problems, developing autonomy and accountability. So that means delegating more responsibilities and initiative to people or councils, adapting a facilitator role, so shifting from a directive role to that of a guide or a coach. Remember what we said about Gallup. It's exactly, how Gallup defined the role of a manager as a coach.
And the fair play, because we started with it and we're finishing with it. People really need to feel that they are working in a fair environment. And we're finishing with sport as well, because an inspiring example of a coach incarnating, this fair play mentality and authentic spirit is Sir Clive Woodward during the England rugby team's triumph in the 2003 Rugby World Cup. Initially, for the story, for those who don't remember or are too young to remember, the England teams were really not considered as favorites to win the tournament because they had really underperformed in the previous years. And Woodward really fostered an environment of trust, and of open communication, collective responsibility, empowering really the player to perform at their best, which ultimately, spoiler, propelled them to win against all odds. And despite being really the underdogs, England defeated the heavily favored Australian team in the final with Woodward's leadership. and the team's commitment to play fair and in unity. We like this example because it really highlights how a coach inspires player to overcome their perceived limitation and their own limitation and even the country's limitation and achieve an incredible victory against really strong components. And so clearly this team wouldn't have won without the coach. This is our view as well on high motivation. It won't happen by itself. You're not going to have a highly motivated team if you're not playing a part in it. As a manager, you clearly have a role to play if you want people to be motivated. And you can do that by trying all the tips we've given you so far.
Let's reflect now on everything we've seen together today. We started by the factors of extrinsic motivation. We talk about money, title, status. Then we move to certainty. Emotional safety is part of human needs. We talk about session for open questions, name or anonymous. We talked about using project management tools with all the team members. We talk about how to provide feedback. We talked about autonomy, reducing uncertainty, making the team feel valued. How to do that? We talk about the low posture versus a high posture. We talk about using open questions versus closed questions. We talk about replacing the whys by what or how. And then we move to connections, developing friendships, going to work, sensing of future in the company. Those are all very important points to keep the team motivated. How to do that? We talk about joint communal areas. We talk about getting to know each other. We talk about fighting the Valentine's Day syndrome, meaning making it a routine and not something exceptional once a year. We talk about the importance of recognition and how to do that. We talk about the company values and culture, how it's important to identify them because every company's got a culture. And if you actually don't take a hand on that, it will just happen. There will be a company culture, whether you like it or not. So either you're in control of it and it's difficult to embody a company culture if you don't really understand what it's all about. So really taking control of the company's culture, embodying it and implementing company value through all the levels, the layers of the company. And then Melinda talked about fair play, the importance of being authentic, and give you a great example.
So for those who wish to delve a bit deeper in this topic, we've got something for you. We built an engagement pack with 20 tools that you can use right away. And we've put as well 5 workshops ready to use. You've got all the instruction on it. It's around 7 main chapters, like how to fuse, empower, express oneself, conflict management, because that's usually something that comes back a lot in the coaching session we have, how to create a vision, promote the engagement, and discover yourself, because the more you know yourself, the better you can work with others. I'll let you read all of them. I'm not going to go through them all, but we have this really cool pack for you.
We have a suggestion for you. If you actually did enjoy the masterclass and you are happy to give us some testimonial, please do. And as a token of gratitude, we will provide the engagement pack that Melinda just talked about for free. Just leave us a testimonial and send us a private message so make sure we don't miss it. And then we send the pack for free for you. Thank you very much. So the next step, Melinda mentioned the engagement pack. Now, I just want to tell you also that if you more into face-to-face or actually even virtual face-to-face session, we do that as well. So let me just talk to you quickly about the one-to-one session that we also offer. This is a 2-hour session tailored for really leaders, team managers who want to boost the atmosphere and productivity of their team. So together, what we'll do is we'll develop a custom strategy plan to create a positive dynamic within the team and fully harness its potential. So in practice, this is useful for you if you want to revitalize engagement by defining a clear and stimulating direction for the entire team. if you want to improve internal communication, if you want to strengthen team cohesion and synergy, or if you want to innovate in your management practices by trying new tools. So what we'll do during those 2 hours is really develop a personalized, clear, strategic and operational plan that perfectly adapt to the specifics and needs of your team. And we establish a clear roadmap to evolve from the current situation you are with your team to an improved and more dynamic reality. And I think I forgot to mention as well that before the session, we send you a reflective questionnaire so you can start gathering your thoughts. And so during those 2 hours, we much more effective and we can accomplish more. Additional benefit, the price of this session do include the engagement pact. So you don't need to, if you're interested in both, you don't need to buy both. And if you already bought the engagement pack, we'll discount that in the price of this session. Also, if you seek a bit of help to assess your team's level of motivation, we actually created a quiz for you. We're into gamification, as you can see. And it's called the Team Bits. It's meant to gauge your team's morale. It's a self-assessment tool, so it doesn't include the varied perspective of your team members. Obviously, that would be very important as well. Yet, it serves as a starting point to identify common indicators of a disengaged team. We created the quiz to give you an additional tool to monitor your team, basically. Thank you for dedicating your time and attention to this masterclass today. We hope you found this session helpful and that you will utilize some of the strategies we discussed today to foster your team's engagement, well-being, and productivity.
Yes, thank you everyone for your participation and commitment. We look forward to seeing you again very soon.